It's what you hearing. It's what you hearing. Listen. It's what you hearing. Listen. It's what you hearing. Listen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
X gon' give it to you. Fuck, wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you. Knock, knock, open up the door, it's real. With the non-stop pop out from stainless steel.
Mr. Cropper here. I have a very brief video, I think. I can do what we need to do pretty quickly here. My challenge to you in the objectosphere is, what benefit do we gain from trade with China? What benefit do we gain from trade with China? I have left it open in my mind up to now as just a floating fresh question of free trade. Okay? Right? If one individual wants to buy something from another individual, who am I to step in between, right? But what if there's an individual who has slaves and they're locked and they're chained and he whips them every day, and I go buy stuff from him and enrich him? Or what if my neighbors and friends are buying stuff from and enriching somebody who has somebody locked up, who has a lot of people locked up in chains, and he's profiting off of their slavery? You see, what do I really have any interest in enriching this slave driver? Now you say, well, you can get it for half the price that you could get it if you went to the Australians, who aren't slave drivers. Or you can get it for less than you can get it if you went to India, who has the rule of law. So that's what it is then, huh? Price? So we'll sell everything for a lower price. Well, then why did we get rid of slavery in the South? Why did we fight that whole damn war? What was that whole war about? If it's not saying that you're not allowed to have slaves. We won't trade with you if you have slaves. We don't like you if you have slaves, and we'll go to war with you if you have slaves. We will free the slaves. We will have freedom. Oh, unless it's China. Then we'll buy cheap stuff, and we'll be better off for it. Okay? That's where I want to stop you. We'll be better off. I don't see that. I see Chinese crap. Poorly made. Everything that comes from China is poorly made. Alright? The Christmas lights burn out. The pencils break. The dog food kills the dogs. Okay? Remember how cheap pet food used to be? And I thought $5 for a bag of pet food. Eventually the price went up to $5.64 for a big bag of pet food that lasts a month. Now I pay $14 for the exact same size bag because we quit buying it from China. But guess what? Our pets aren't dying anymore. Alright? What do we get from China? You can't use their soap. You can't use their shampoo. Can't use their toothpaste. The Christmas lights are coated in lead. You ever seen that little warning on the Christmas lights? Warning, wash your hands, etc., etc. This plastic lining contains lead. Holy crap. What do we gain? What do we benefit from dealing with China? If we buy a radio controller or a bicycle, it's half the price, but it doesn't work. It breaks. They have this attitude in China of just use something till it breaks and throw it away and get a new one. And it's immensely, immensely costly to their society. And we are shipping truckloads of garbage to our landfills. You people buy all these disgustingly cheap tricycles for your kids that then break, and you just throw it away. Barbie dolls, toy trucks, everything. Garbage just gets thrown away. The army thought it would save some money, and it bought some stuff from China. And there's like these gaskets that go in the engine of the F-16 fighter jets, and they are overhauling them. And instead of paying $22,000 to get an American company to make them, they decided to pay, $600 or whatever to get this Chinese company to make them. And of course, the stuff was utterly, utterly unusable. Utterly, utterly unusable. Just a waste of money and a waste of time and resources on our part. Now the Chinese got money. All this crap they're sending us, they're getting money for it. What are we getting from China? Now if you ask Ayn Rand, we have nothing to gain from China. Free countries have nothing to gain from communist countries. Therefore, the only form of common policy or compromise possible between two such parties is the policy of a property owner who makes a piecemeal concession to the armed thug. The armed thug's not making concessions to us, we are making concessions to them. We don't need them. No, but our stuff's cheaper. Garbage. It's garbage. We don't need them. They need us desperately. Now, where does this all go back to? Nixon and the Shanghai Gesture. Nixon, the scumbag, and the Shanghai Gesture. It's in the Ayn Rand letter. It's right here. This is at Amazon. It's not the whole thing, it's just the first page. I have these books, but they're with my library in Utah at my dad's house, damn it. So I can't go get it off of the shelf. But there you go, the Shanghai Gestures, where you'll learn about when and how we decided that we would talk to China. Now, this is an interesting bit here. Russia was the only winner of and profiteer in World War II, which she won not by military might, but through victory over Roosevelt and Churchill at Yalta. Now, some of you are going to say, oh, come on, Churchill and the United States and Britain hardly killed anybody, right? The Russians killed 20-1 Germans compared to the West. All right? Now, if you ask Mr. Cropper is going to say, well, all of their tanks and guns and their steel mills and their trains, their locomotives, everything was shipped to them over the hump at Murmansk from the West. Everything. They had virtually nothing. And they were still using our steel plants that we shipped and built for them during World War II. They were still using them when Russia fell apart. But look what she says right there in parentheses. Russia did not win by military might, as demonstrated by the fact that she was twice defeated by Finland. Russia was utterly, utterly pathetic. They couldn't even beat the Finnish. With columns of tens of thousands, they were held back by several hundred riflemen. Okay? Utterly, utterly pathetic. There was this great recounting of the Russians attacking Finland, and there was the front line, and during the night, the Finnish troops snuck in between camps of the Russians and opened withering fire onto them, onto the sleeping, haphazard, drunk troops. Then they quietly withdrew. They slipped back into the snowy forest, disappeared, while those Russians got their shit in order and started firing back. And what was hilarious was that they started firing towards the next camp over, which, hearing all the commotion and now taking fire, started defending itself. And so as these very small group of Finnish troops withdrew from the scene, two large groups of Russian troops were firing at each other in an escalating, vicious firefight. That's the type of thing that went on in the front lines in Finland. Russia is utterly incompetent. What do we gain from China? Why are we trading with China? Why should we trade with China? Now, I'm not trying to defend Trump's tariffs. I'm saying Trump's a coward. I'm saying we ought to have a 100% trade embargo against China. And it says here, observe, it says here, so long as the United States recognizes and deals with Soviet Russia, there's no reason not to deal with China. It is a thoroughly immoral policy for us to recognize and deal with Russia. But so long as we do, There's no reason not to deal with China, because China is an even lesser threat to the civilized world. Well, where are we today? China is a gargantuan threat to the civilized world today. If China decides to go to war, they are more well armed now than they have ever been, or than Russia ever was. Now, whether her troops will fight for her, I don't know. That's why Russia never went to war, says Ayn Rand, because her troops won't fight for her. They tried in Afghanistan to do just not even a war, just like roll in there with massive force and just sit there, and they couldn't even do that. Their troops were selling ammunition, tanks, and petroleum to the Afghans. The Afghans were firing on Russians with Russian equipment. Alright, so China and Russia are incompetent, useless, savage thugs. Now, I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, what do we gain by dealing with them? I posit that we gain nothing, that we have nothing to gain from murderous thugs. And if we buy anything at all from them, we do moral, material damage to our allies who would gladly have sold us the same goods, but better made, and not made by slaves. So, to the objectosphere, what do we gain by trade with China, and why should we not have a 100% trade embargo against China, and what the hell, Russia too, so far as that goes? And you're going to say, Saudi Arabia. Okay, good. Let's do it. Trade embargo against Saudi Arabia. I'm on board. I'm ready. Especially now we have fracking. I'm not worried at all. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's, we've been going a few minutes. I think that's all I have to say. If you like what I do, if you like what I say, please patronize me. I feel kind of guilty when I sit here and spend hours going over videos and making videos and posting comments and replying to comments. I feel guilty about it because I'm not making money and I'm not rich. So I really should be doing something productive. So if you value what I do, please, $5-10 a month on Patreon. If we get enough of you together, then I can do this without feeling guilty about the time that I'm wasting. If you don't think that this is a waste of time for Mr. Cropper to get on here and rant and rave, then please patronize me. Thank you.